Hello again, everyone. Welcome to Washington Gun Law TV. I'm Washington Gun Law President William Kirk. Thanks for joining us. Hey, as you know, we have spent an awful lot of time and energy here at Washington Gun Law tracking the trials and tribulations of House Bill 1240 as it marched its way through the House and then the Senate on its eventual march towards the governor's desk. And then a funny thing happened late last week, which is apparently the Washington State House of Representatives and the Washington State Senate decided to get into a pissing contest about some amendments. And it has a lot of you confused about what exactly are they arguing about? What is this infighting all about? And could it actually kill the bill? So today, let's try to get some clarification on those issues and get you all up to speed. And let's talk about the Democratic infighting that's delaying Washington's assault weapon ban. Okay, so the issue we're talking about today for the 723rd time now is House Bill 1240 and the interesting little roadblock that we just reached, because as we know, when the bill passed out of the House and went over to the Senate made a few little tweaks to it, a few amendments. Now, I'm going to go over those amendments because I want you to understand how important those amendments are, especially if you fall into some of the categories of people who are going to be exempted from this statute. But what Lori Jenkins did in a very unusual move is she basically told the Senate, hey, you know what, pound sand. You guys had no right to make these amendments. It's outside the scope of the bill. And so instead of voting to ratify and reconcile the House bill with the Senate bill, no, Speaker Jenkins knows better. She punted it back over to the Senate. She's telling the Senate to strike those amendments, which means she is now putting fellow Democrats in the Washington State Senate in the undubious position of having to have previously voted for these amendments and now being asked to change their vote for no reason other than Speaker Jenkins wants it that way. Now, there has been a lot of debate and a lot of confusion over what exactly are the amendments that the pissing contest is brewing over. And rather than sit there and try to extrapolate and read tea leaves, what we could have done was just probably read the House bill report that summarizes the bill once the Senate was done with it. Now, there were three amendments, and I don't know whether these came through three separate votes or these are a combination of other amendments, but there were three changes made by the Senate. I want you to be aware of what the changes are and how important they are. Now, the first change, and this is absolutely, in my opinion, the most critical, as the House bill report states, as amended by the Senate, the bill contains the following changes. 1. The definition of import is modified to exclude situations where an individual possesses an assault weapon when departing from and returning to Washington, so long as the individual is returning to Washington in possession of the same assault weapon the individual transported out of state. Now, this is huge for multiple reasons. One of the big reasons, and for those of you who've geeked out on this channel for a while, you know that we are really, really picky about consistent application of the law across all spectrums of life. When we take a look at how the large capacity magazine ban was defined and how importation was defined under that statute, we know from this video right here, actually, that if you take 10 high capacity magazines that you lawfully own out of state, and you bring those same 10 capacity magazines back into this state, well, you are neither importing nor exporting any of those magazines. There's nothing unlawful about that. What the Washington State Senate wanted to do was shockingly make the possession of assault weapons to be similar to high capacity magazines and have a similar definition. I know, shocking. Why would we want to have any consistency in the law? The Washington State House of Representatives, Speaker Jenkins in particular, though, has a big beef with this and wants this stricken. Now, think about this. For those of you who live in Vancouver, for those of you who live in Spokane or places like that, anywhere close to state lines, if you have an assault weapon, which is grandfathered in after House Bill 1240 becomes law, and you take it across state lines, if this bill is passed in the form that Speaker Jenkins wants it passed in, you cannot bring that weapon back into the state. You forfeit that weapon when you cross state lines. Now, do I think that this adds yet another constitutional challenge to this otherwise unconstitutional law? Yes, I most certainly do believe that. However, the absurd consequences of this legislation is exactly what the Senate was trying to avoid by adopting a similar definition. That is only one of the first three changes that the Senate made, but one that I think all of us all of us should be very, very worried about. Now, there were a couple other amendments, and according to the House Bill report, it includes 2. An exemption is added allowing the out-of-state sale or transfer of existing stock of assault weapons owned by a licensed dealer that was acquired prior to January 1st, 2023 for the limited period of 90 days after the bill takes effect. This essentially is an amendment that allows FFLs to recover some of their inventory so that some of them may actually keep their heads above water. The always business-friendly Democrats in the state House, however, want this stricken from the bill. They want this amendment removed from the bill. Speaker Jenkins does not want to do anything possible to help protect the FFL industry. And then the third amendment that was filed on this, according to the House Bill report, is an exception is added exempting from the bill's restrictions any person on active military duty receiving orders to move to Washington or military retirees moving to Washington. So this is an amendment that said that if you were serving in the United States military in some other state and received orders to now relocate to Washington state for military service, you can bring your lawfully possessed assault weapons with you. And the amendment also said that any former member of military would be exempt from this statute. This is also an amendment that Speaker Jenkins wants stricken from the bill. And this is going to put a lot of Democrats, as I mentioned before, in the very undubious position of having supported these amendments because they make common sense, and now having to back off their vote, literally change their vote 96 hours later to keep the Speaker of the House happy. Now, today is Monday, April 17th. We anticipated the bill to be on the governor's desk either today or tomorrow. That's clearly not going to happen. What do I anticipate is going to happen? I do anticipate that the Senate's going to find that their backbone shrinks significantly, that they're all going to find their courage, that they're probably going to back off and they're going to kowtow to Speaker Jenkins. If that does not happen, we're going to be at a stalemate. We're going to be at a stalemate where either the House is going to have to accept this bill as it is, or this bill is going to go into hibernation. I didn't say die, because let us remember that this is the 2023-24 legislative session, which means this bill could rear and likely would rear its ugly head again next legislative session. Let us also remember that former Senate Bill 5078, which turned into Washington's magazine capacity ban, was passed in 2022, but originally introduced in the 2021 legislative session. So this is entirely possible. What the Democrats are saying is if they cannot reach an agreement, they're going to form a committee, and that committee will then obviously figure out what's the best way and the most complete way to strip you of your Second Amendment rights. That's what's going on with House Bill 1240. It's going to be very interesting to see, will the Democrats actually allow this infighting to kill this bill when they are literally inches away from the finish line? We can keep our fingers crossed, but candidly, I don't think it's going to happen. Listen, you may have more questions about this or anything else related to House Bill 1240 or anything else related to what's left of our Second Amendment rights. You should know how to get a hold of Washington gun law by now, but if you don't, that's okay. That information is right there in the description box. In the meantime, I do want all of you to remember that part of being the lawful and responsible gun owner, like we talk about all the time here at Washington Gun Law, is to know what the law is in every situation, how it applies to you in any instance that you may find yourself. Until next time, thanks for watching and stay safe.